Hey, welcome to this radio channel, and this is a quick video for anyone that wonders how you set the bandwidth size in HDSDR for shortwave listening. Sometimes we want to narrow down bandwidth because there's interference from stations that are really close to our frequency. Sometimes it could be because you want to have a better audio quality. For example, China Radio International has this habit of being much larger than most other international broadcasters on the frequency. So sometimes you can see that at the top here, you see this colored area is showing you the bandwidth that you have right now. And in the display, the signal shows you how wide it is. If this is slightly smaller than the waterfall, it means that you're not getting the full audio quality, and you can make it a little larger. Now, I tend to like to have it a little smaller because it removes some of the higher pitched frequencies that are sometimes annoying. But you can change it simply by going here in this display, and if you change this, you'll notice that here your bandwidth will also increase. So say I want to move this to more than 5 kilohertz wide, I'll move it like this and say here I want to put it in 5.5 kilohertz or something. Notice how this area here became large now. It's much larger and will follow more closely the track of your waterfall station that you're listening to. Same thing, you can actually narrow it down and say, well, I want to have it smaller so that I can either avoid interference on each side or simply have a different type of sound. Now you can even have it much wider if you want, and that goes in bandwidth on the left side here. If you look at bandwidth, the output bandwidth is here. If you change that, say for example I choose the 24,000 output, here you will notice that your display here now goes beyond 10,000. That's because it is much bigger, and now you can really have it very wide if you want. This would be good, for example, if you're trying to decode a DRM signal. Having a large bandwidth will help you. And of course you can put the output back to normal. So whatever you're listening to, you can play with the bandwidth, and whatever mode you are with, you can play with that bandwidth. So say you're listening to a station in upper sideband and you really want to narrow it down, you can actually take it and really narrow the bandwidth of any signal you're listening to, which will really avoid interference, especially of close by amateur radio stations, for example. So that's how you set up your bandwidth here. And if you have FM signals that you're listening to and you find the bandwidth's not big enough, same thing applies, but you can also go into the bandwidth options and make it much larger. For example, if you're listening to FM, local FM stations, you'll want to put it at 192,000, the biggest bandwidth that you can use, that you can see here, because that will give you enough bandwidth to listen to a wide FM signal from one of these stations. So hope this is a clear explanation of how to change your bandwidth depending on what you're listening to. So an example here, if I go on 14010 and I try to check for Morse code signals, I'll put my radio, of course, in CW mode. And here in CW mode, I will try to get any stations that are in Morse code that I could see or anything. Right now, propagation isn't that fantastic, so I don't see a lot of stuff. But it could be very interesting if you want to listen to something. And of course, you have available your full bandwidth here that you can, of course, play with, make it bigger, make it even smaller, to basically tune into a signal that you're hearing in Morse code, for example. So that, like here, there's one. I can narrow it down and basically just narrow it to a point where you see that CW signal appear in a very narrow mode. So if there's other CW signals on each side, basically, I will avoid them by really tuning precisely into this signal. So that's pretty much how you set it up, and you can play with it and set it the way you like it. Of course, the more narrow you use the filters, the weirder it might sound to your ears. So it depends on the types of signal that you're listening to. If you enjoy my videos, why not subscribe and give us thumbs up. If you have any comments, questions, let us know. And of course, I will be doing more videos on HDSDR and SDR Sharp to show you how to change different aspects of your listening experience. Hope you enjoy the videos.